As the debate on the Bela Act rages on, one education expert says government needs to engage on a more broader conversation which looks at the right of equality for all as stipulated in the Constitution. Professor Mary Metcalf says the conversation on the Bela Act should consider all South Africans.
There's also deep emotion within the country. I think on the one hand, there are people whose families live with the painful sense of dispossession and injustice and exclusion. And that bubbles up, understandably so. On the other hand, there's people who fear the loss of their language in the formal state schooling system and who fear their loss of cultural identity. Now, I think that what the space that is now there, clearly it's within government where people must find each other, but we also need to be as inclusive as possible and find solutions, understanding that the Constitution protects us all, yes, and understanding that state resources have to be used for the benefit of all people. So possibly this will accelerate the discussions, make it more inclusive, and hopefully be characterized by a sense of seeking understanding, seeking an inclusive solution, right, and not of a winner.
Let's get more reaction on the issue now. I am joined by Mugwena Maluleke, who's Sadtu General Secretary. Mr. Maluleke, good to have you on the program this evening. Firstly, Sadtu has strongly opposed the agreement which has been reached apparently between Minister Gwarube as well as Solidarity regarding the Bela Act. Can you explain on the main reasons behind Sadtu's rejection of this deal and how it relates to your vision for educational transformation in the country?
Okay, good evening to you and to your viewers at home, and thank you for having us. Yes, we are opposed to this argument because we are the largest trade union in education. We have never been consulted. We have never been engaged on any matter that relates to this particular act. Ever since it was signed, we've been expressing our discomfiture about the suspension of clause 4 and 5, but at no stage has the minister sought to talk to us. And we believe that whatever has happened at the level of the network is against what the president has really done, because there is a process in the GNU where they call it, a cleaning house or a cleaning team, a cleansing team that has got to deal with this particular issue. So, the suspension of these two clauses, I have said it before, it is anti-transformation, okay? It is about promoting the dominance of the minority, the dominance in terms of political as well as economic. So it's about power, and people do not want to have an integration in a country, and hence they are against transformation because they say to all of us, look here, you must go and build a school for the Zulus, go and build a school for the Tswanas. No, South Africa is a non-racial society. We are an integrated society and we want social cohesion. And therefore, this particular bill or an act is to really help us to democratize, to have a social cohesion where we can unite our people in this country to live as a nation of South Africa and not the so-called equal but separate. Because that particular doctrine, basically it is advancing issues of racism, is advancing issues of tribalism and ethnicity, where you say this ethnic group must stay here alone, they must not mix with the others. So hence we're saying the president has done something that is unprecedented, whilst it was within his powers or prerogative to do that, but he has created this particular confusion because now Gwarube go and have a bilateral. We don't know who else is going to have a bilateral on this particular issue, but we're left out as the teachers, we're left out as the representative of the most representative organization in education.
You say you feel left out as teachers, but also interesting is this comparison that you make between the current situation and the apartheid-era policies, particularly around language in schools. Can you explain the historical parallels that you see and why you believe the Bela Act's provisions on language policy are actually a step backward? Maybe let's re-emphasize that point.
No, it's not a step backward, because what is happening is that there is no threat to the Afrikaans language. if the parents in that particular community, in terms of demographics, are Afrikaans speaking. And because the society is now integrated as a community, and then the parents in that particular school will then agree that Afrikaans would remain a language of instruction, but we also want another language because not every child is speaking Afrikaans, and therefore they will have a parallel, or they have got multilingual instruction at the level of the school and so forth. There's nothing wrong. This is about social cohesion. So the imposition of Afrikaans in those particular years until the 1976 uprising, that it was because of an imposition. And this time, nobody's imposing any language on any other person. It's democratic. The parents in a school, the community decide this is going to be the language that we use. If it is multilingual or it is bilingual, they agree, and therefore they then are able to say, submit that to the head of department. The head of department does not impose like it happens during apartheid, where we were told you are going to study everything in Afrikaans. We were not asked. It was just the Minister of Education who passed the policy, passed the act, and then therefore it was imposed on us. So for me, it is that we need to understand that this fear that people are talking about is not there. It does not even arise. There's no fear about the Afrikaans language is going to be undermined. It's going to no. This is just a simple. We don't want to do away with our privileges. We are a privileged group as Afrikaners, and therefore want to remain like that. We own the economy. We own the land. We don't want to share the land. They refuse Section 25 to be amended, and therefore they must get everything. And therefore they are getting everything, and then we as Africans must always pleading and wanting to reconcile and so forth. So to me, it's as simple as that. There's no fear. It's no threat to the Afrikaans language. It is going to be taught. It's going to be learned. It's going to be spoken. And therefore, there's nothing wrong with a bilingual or a multilingual school.
Yeah. You did mention that Sadtu is the largest teacher union in the country. With that said, what do you believe will be the broader implications of this agreement, especially for the transformation of education in South Africa, but also especially in terms of inclusivity or issues around racial equality?
Look, this particular so-called agreement, which we reject, and we're not going to allow it to happen. We are going to make sure that our ministers or MECs are going to implement the act, because we have resolved today as a National Executive Committee that we are now going to have a rolling mass action against the leaders of this country who basically would want to take us back into the eras of colonialism and the eras of apartheid. We are going to be, protesting, and we're going to oppose everything that they think they can bring to block, transformation. So what we believe it is that the school governing bodies must proceed to do their work. The MECs and the head of departments must continue to, as if this agreement is not there, because it's not there. It was signed by a minority, and therefore the minority can rule the majority forever. It's never happened. President Mandela told the people in Burundi and in Rwanda that you cannot continue to rule the majority as a minority, and it's not going to happen again. We're ruled by a minority. We're not going to allow education to be used again to do what apartheid did, because they use education to degrade us. They use education to deny us skills and so forth. They use education to divide us into tribes, into ethnic groups and so forth. So we cannot allow that to happen again. Again, the politicians will meet somewhere and agree that they would want to now reintroduce the same policies of equal but separate. Integration is at the center of our constitution in this country, and therefore social cohesion, it is our project, it is our agenda. We want unity, we want Afrikaners, we want Zulu, we want Nkosa, Mshangani as one. We need to be strong and believing that this is what we want to build as a country.
Also interesting is that the agreement suggests that school governing bodies, or SGBs, should have significant input into the language policies at schools. From Sadtu's perspective, what would be the ideal approach? You have mentioned that you want to see everybody treated equally, especially considering South Africa's diverse linguistic landscape as well. Let's expand more on that.
Yes. That is what this particular Bela Act is addressing. It does not take away the powers of the school governing bodies. It does not take away the powers of the community. It takes into account the demographics. of each and every community. What it's saying is that if this particular community is an integrated community, they have got a multilingual, they need to look into that and say, okay, how many languages are we going to use in the school as a language of instruction? If it's 2, then they will then develop a policy based on the majority of the discussion, the majority decision of the people that are there in that particular meeting, where the school governing body has consulted everybody in that particular community, and therefore they will arrive at the situation. Say, now we are taking a decision on the basis of the input submissions by everybody that is there in our community, in our school, and therefore this is the language, or these are the 2 languages, or the 3 languages that we are going to be using. But these are the implications. We might have to need, we're going to require so many teachers, and therefore the government must provide for that. And then they submit this to the head of department, and the head of department will then look at and audit these particular consultative processes and consultative forums that have been embarked upon by the school governing body. And then upon being satisfied that this was a democratic process and everybody has been given an opportunity to say what they have got to say in the best interest of the children, in the best interest of the community. Therefore, these are the languages, or this is a single language that is going to be used, and then that thing is passed. The head of department does not come at the beginning, but comes at the end to say, yes, we agree, we endorse this particular policy. The SGB have got the powers, nobody has taken the powers away.
As we begin winding down our conversation, Minister Gwarube's decision to indeed engage with Solidarity instead of Sadtu, this does raise concerns, especially within your union. How do you view the government's approach, especially to engaging with unions in discussions about major educational reforms? Do you feel that Sadtu's input is indeed being sidelined here?
Yes, Sadtu's input has been sidelined. We knew about it. If you go back to the manifesto of the DA, where Gwarube is coming from, the manifesto of the DA has a dedicated section in that particular manifesto to deal with Sadtu. So it has always been planned that as soon as they have a minister of a DA, they will make sure that they weaken the union. So they will not consult with Sadtu. They will not hear the views of Sadtu, because it is a plan to sideline, to marginalize and weaken Sadtu. Is in black and white that Sadtu must be weakened, it must be dealt with, it must be destroyed, and therefore this is the beginning. So what Gwarube is doing basically is implementing the manifesto of the DA.
Yeah. Mr. Maluleke, thank you so much for your time. That's Mugwena Maluleke from Sadtu, sharing his insights and the perspective of Sadtu on such a critical issue in South African education. Of course, speaking to that agreement as well